I am so delighted to welcome all of you today for this forum, the Arts, Medicine, and Health Forum, a conversation for our time. This is such important work, and we have a very distinguished panel today. I'm going to introduce you to them, and then each of our panelists will have a time to describe their interest in this work. We have Dr. Jeffrey Russell, who is the College of Fine Arts Scholar in Residence this year. Dr. Cassie Turner, Associate Professor in the Department of Integrated Health Science. Dr. Stephen Kaplan, Professor, School of Music, and the head of the Consortium of Health and Injury Prevention, and our Professor Norma Saldivar, Chair of the Department of Theater and Executive Director of Nevada Conservatory Theater. I want to thank Jerry Crawford, a very, very wonderful friend of the College of Fine Arts and a great community leader, for her support in helping us put on this forum and in general supporting this important interdisciplinary work. I will start with Dr. Stephen Kaplan, Professor of the School of Music and head of the Consortium for Health and Injury Prevention, who is also the chair of our College of Fine Arts Research Task Force. Stephen, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Nancy, and it's a pleasure to be here, especially with these other panelists today. I want to talk a little bit about how I got involved in work with performing artists and health and the work we've been doing here at UNLV. So I've actually been here 33 years now. And I love being in Las Vegas because I'm a performer. I play the oboe, and I get to play music with our wonderful faculty here at UNLV. I've been able to I'm principal oboist with the Las Vegas Philharmonic, so I get a lot of great performing there. But also because we're Las Vegas, there's a lot of great performances that happen on the Strip, and I've been so encouraged and had such a great time playing with big pop superstars and for things like the Latin Grammys and stuff like that. So I just get a great variety of performance opportunities here. And that's why I've stayed here so long. But also, probably the main reason I've stayed here is we have really fantastic students at UNLV, and I love working with the students. So I teach private oboe lessons, but I also teach chamber music and other things. And for many years now, I've been focusing on these health issues of our music students. Actually, starting in the spring of 2003, I introduced a new course here at UNLV specifically about musicians' health issues. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to a screen share so I can show you a few images that might bring some of this to life better. Let's see if I can make this work. It worked once before, so we'll see. Here, and I open it up for you. Okay, so this shows you some of the issues when it comes to musicians' wellness. These are the things that I cover in the class with the students. We talk about hearing health issues, repetitive stress injuries, of course, you might know tendonitis, TMJ dysfunction, carpal tunnel. The list goes on of the types of injuries that musicians experience. Sometimes these are due because of postural problems, so we spend a lot of time talking about that. One of the biggest things I have to hit head on is, we hear a lot today about fake news and alternative facts, but they've been around in the music world for way too long, for decades. And there are a lot of pedagogical myths about how we breathe and how we use our arms that just don't jive with how the body actually works in movement. So I tried to hit a lot of those myths with the students and help them to understand better how they can use their bodies in a way that will allow them to make healthy music for a long period of time. We talk about performance anxiety, other mental health issues, nutrition, a little bit about the exploding, incredible research on the brain. So these are some of the things that I've been teaching. I developed an undergrad course first and then started teaching a graduate level course that included a little bit of research work with it. And at this point, I would guess I've taught over 300 students through these courses now. Because there aren't that many courses like this around the country, there were some before I started doing it that I modeled what I'm doing after. But still, there aren't that many schools that have a fully dedicated course like this in the curriculum. And ours is actually now required for our performance majors. which is very unusual nationally. So because of that, I've actually worked with other people to develop this type of coursework around the country and even overseas in England and other places in Europe. So that's been exciting. I've also, during that time, let's see, it's supposed to go to another slide now. What's happening? There it goes. I've written 2 books now specifically for oboe players that cover some of these health issues, what every oboe player needs to know about the body, and a breathing book for oboe players. I'm now a regular contributor to the International Double Reed Society Journal. I contribute a health column to that journal 4 times a year. All of this happened because in 2004, I was licensed in something called body mapping. Body mapping is a way of training musicians to understand the body better and training them in how to use efficient movements in order to make better music, basically, and also to avoid injury. So initially, I just got a license to be able to teach this, and that helped me to put those courses together. But since then, I've become one of 5 what are called sponsoring teachers for the Association of Body Mapping Educators. And I'm responsible for licensing other people now to teach body mapping. So in that capacity, I've now trained musicians from all over the world, including members of the New York Philharmonic, the St. the Academy of St. Martin's in the Field, many others. With the other sponsoring teachers, a big project I've had over the past few months is that we've just done a total revision of our training manuals that we use for people who are studying this. It's over 200 pages. It's been a big project, and we just finished that. I've also taught in a lot of different website that they just released actually about 2 weeks ago, and apparently I'm on the front of the website now, the Association of Body Mapping Education. Here I'm teaching actually in the Czech Republic. I've been lucky enough to teach in London and the Czech Republic and Italy, all over the United States. The most important result of all this for me are the musicians who have written me or that I've worked with personally. They've told me, some have just emailed me out of the blue, that their careers basically have been saved by this body mapping work. Some of them have even told me that simply reading my book allowed them to continue their career when they were on the verge of completely giving it up and quitting because they had experienced so many injuries. And doctors had told them they really should stop playing. So that's really rewarding to find out that this information people. I work with more than oboe players. Even early on here in Las Vegas, I had a keyboard player who came to me from one of the Cirque shows locally. And they have some wonderful physical therapists there with Cirque, and she had worked with them. She'd had some hand injuries, tendonitis related stuff. And she had worked with them, and it seemed to be a little better. Then it would come back. They allowed her to go to San Diego and work with an Alexander technique teacher that for some reason didn't really click with her, even though usually that's an incredible thing for a lot of people. But anyway, she began working on this body mapping stuff with me. At first, she couldn't play more than 5 minutes without having severe pain in her forearms. Within a few weeks, I got her playing half an hour before she started having experiencing the severe pain. But within about 3 or 4 months, we had her playing full time in the show again. And she's been playing for many years since then, about 12 years since then, without any pain or injury. And I've worked with a lot of singers on breathing issues, etc. So it's really rewarding work. The most recent stuff I've been doing, member here at UNLV, Gabby Wolf is known all over the world for her work with athletes, skiers, tennis players, golfers, on something she describes as external focus. It's fascinating work, and I've been discussing with her, she's already explored this a little before ever meeting me, how this work can be applied to musicians, but we're working together on more applications and ways of improving musicians' performance through a better understanding of some of the learning. She calls it optimal learning theory that includes this external focus issue that she's researched so much. So as I'm doing all of this, I realized I'm not alone here. There are other people doing similar kinds of work in our college. And so About 3 or 4 years ago, I talked to Nancy about, Dean Uscher, I should say, about forming a consortium. We call it the Consortium for Health and Injury Prevention. So we now have that for about 2.5 years, and we've done many different things, including setting certain policy for the College of Fine Arts. We have a nice website that needs a lot of updating. But we also have done several symposiums. Here's a bunch of Clark County School District teachers that came for an all-day symposium we did, and they're doing a Pilates class here, but they also did some yoga and a little body mapping and a bunch of other things during the course of the day. I think I have another slide. This is showing our students from our medical school, actually. We spent about 4 hours with them discussing a variety of issues that performing artists have, so we could hopefully increase their awareness and answer any questions they have about this field. There is a whole field, and I'm sure we'll probably talk a little more about the whole field of performing arts medicine, it's called. And so we're trying just to raise awareness in any way we can for the whole Las Vegas community about the variety of health issues that are unique to the performing arts, but also sometimes not so unique. So anyway, the very latest thing that we're doing that I'm super excited about is we are on the verge of opening a clinic for health and injury prevention for our performing artists here at UNLV. So we have a dedicated space near the building that we use for music and dance classes. And we're in the process of putting things in that space. This is the first piece of equipment we got, and there's Dolly, who is demonstrating its use from dance, and she's our wonderful Pilates instructor as well. So we're in the process of putting more things in here so it can be an effective place for our students to get evaluated and get support and get redirected to other people that can help them even more potentially. But this is a project I'm really excited about, and Cassie Turner is involved with me very much in putting this all together. And it's another thing that we're especially indebted to Jerry Crawford for, because she gave us some funding to put together the clinic and the equipment that we need for the clinic. So those are a few of the things that are happening right here at UNLV, and I'm really excited about all of it. And I will let somebody else take over and tell me about the stuff they're doing.
Stephen, thank you so much for that great sort of introduction to our forum. And we are very excited to have all our panelists here, and they will later on in the forum interact with each other. But this time it's good to hear sort of, an introduction from each of them. And I would like to ask Dr. Cassie Turner next, who's Associate Professor in the Department of Integrated Health Sciences, to introduce herself and talk about her work. Thank you, Cassie.
Thank you, Dean Uscher. So my name is Cassie Turner. I'm actually faculty in the Department of Physical Therapy in the School of Integrated Health Sciences, and I'm actually proud to say there were a few of my PT students in that photograph with the School of Medicine students. They stand out on campus in their blue scrubs, and I know I have at least one of them in this meeting right now as well. I've been a faculty member in the department since 2011. Prior to that, I was in full-time practice as an orthopedic PT. And prior to that, I was a professional dancer. And I say dancer because I'm originally from England. So I trained in the UK, primarily in ballet originally, and then diversified into all different types of dance. Ended up in Las Vegas and performed for 8 years on the Strip with Siegfried and Roy. Was a student in the kinesiology department at the same time, and then ended up coming into the PT program here at UNLV. Since I have been, so that's really where my interest in dance medicine comes from. And also while I was a professional dancer, I became certified in Pilates. So I've actually known Dolly Calipez for many years. And since I have been in the physical therapy department, obviously, I'm primarily a clinical faculty member, so I teach a lot of the hands-on courses for our students in gaining their basic examination and assessment skills. But my research area has been in dance medicine and injury prevention, really from my experiences of often not having access to good specialized care as a performer back in the day. And so I've actually been lucky enough to work with Dr. Shore Brana, who is affiliated with Alvin Ailey American Dance Theatre. She was actually responsible for starting their PT program for the company and the school. And she has become somewhat of a research mentor for me. So I've been able to do some work with her, which has been, we actually have a project that's still ongoing, looking at one of her, she does some screenings for dancers, and she has an area that's specifically focused on dance technique. And so we're actually checking the reliability of that screening technique, or that screening tool, essentially. And then we've also started service learning projects for our students. So our students, it's a doctor of physical therapy program. They are required to do a capstone project. Historically, it's had to be a research project, but in the last 3 years, we've also added the option of doing a service learning project. So with my area of interest where it is, I decided to, and knowing that the dancers at UNLV don't have the same access to care like our athletes do, we started a service learning project, also integrating some of the tools that Dr. Brana's been using at Alvin Ailey. But essentially, we came up with a screening session that we can do to help screen dancers for potential injury risk. And then we've also been offering, for those students that we find maybe some issues with, and usually when they come to the screen, they've already got something that they're dealing with. So we do offer PT evaluations and then treatments as well. We've been running that essentially out of one of our classrooms. So the possibility of having a dedicated space that we can do interdisciplinary things with is great. And I think that's about all I have right now, but I'm super excited for the direction that everything is going in. It's almost like this, I got into physical therapy because I was interested in dance medicine, really. So to be able to see this integrate with my passion is really awesome.
Nancy, I think you're muted.
I wanted to thank you, Cassie, for your introduction and the rich background that you shared with us in your work. And now I'm delighted to introduce Professor Norma Saldivar, who's chair of our Department of Theater and executive director of our Nevada Conservatory Theater, who also has a really fascinating background in performing arts health. Norma?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you, and I'm so impressed with my fellow panelists. I come to health and the arts in a slightly different way, from a different direction. In my previous life, I was the executive director of the Arts Institute at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, which was an interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary institute that focused on creating research and new bridges between different departments. And one of the areas on campus that we worked with were the sciences, and specifically the School of Medicine. We started, my interest started back in the early 2000s with Alan Alda Center for Science Communication at Stony Brook. I had seen him at the World Science Festival and was very impressed with the way he was utilizing theater improvisation, a form of education for actors that had been developed by a wonderful artist named Viola Spolin. And what I discovered was that this actually came from a social scientist named Neva Boyd, these games that were really there to engage the creative imagination and problem solving and empathy, which was so important. And Mr. Alder was specifically focusing on communication, but part of that communication had to do with empathy. And so as things happen in the world, I went and spent time at Stony Brook, and there I met a colleague from the University of Wisconsin-Madison School of Medicine who we had both been at the university for many years and had never had an opportunity to interact because that's the way life is. Artists don't often get a chance to meet those in the sciences or medicine. And we had to go all the way to Stony Brook, New York to actually meet each other. And once we did, we couldn't stop collaborating. And we started to focus on using improvisation specifically to work with the Carbone Cancer Center on campus and using improvisation to work with clinicians, specifically looking at empathy and developing and unleashing the possibility of empathy in terms of change. And so in 2016, we applied for an NE8 grant, and we were very blessed to get that grant. And from that, we developed a study that specifically focused on interprofessional improvisation and specifically looking at techniques to teach empathy to medical teams. So we worked with clinicians. We worked with about 100 students in a class that we developed. And what we found was these techniques that we as actors had been training were actually quite effective in creating teamwork, in creating sensitivity and a rise of listening, just simple tools that were so important for groups of clinicians and health professionals to work together. So that study has developed into, I think, a really wonderful pathway for myself and for my colleague, Dr. Amy Zielinski, and for a number of other colleagues who participated in that study. Now, what happened was once I came to UNLV, I, of course, put out feelers about interest, and I found myself engaged with a young man named Robert Cochran, who is a PhD candidate in kinesiology, who had an interest in doing exactly what we had done and was hoping that we would participate. So we're doing a partnership with Robert in kinesiology, specifically around using improvisational techniques, not for interprofessional training per se, but specifically for Parkinson's. His focus is Parkinson's, and so we have sent over 2 graduate students to serve as assistants to Robert in developing the study, which literally uses improvisational tools to work with Parkinson's patients, caregivers, health professionals, and he is over the next 3 years going to develop this study with our students, which we're so very excited about. I think it's supremely important that we utilize the gifts that we have in ways that can change the world. And something as simple as using these kinds of tools has an incredible impact. Now, we've now been into 13 weeks of our graduate students who are actors, primarily here studying to receive their Masters of Fine Arts in Performance, who want to be professional actors, working in a kinesiology lab with a doctoral candidate, and it completely outside of the realm of their understanding. But what's fascinating about it is they're coming back with tales of the importance of the work that's happening there, how they can transfer some of the skills that they're using into the work that they want to do in the future. So our work and my work has been over the last 10 years, really, even before that, I would even say 15 years, has been about finding ways for theater specifically to interact and integrate with the sciences and medicine. As the executive director of the Arts Institute, I was privileged to work with colleagues in the School of Medicine, and we offered a film festival and were able to bring children's theater or children's film, I should say, to the Children's Hospital there. And we actually provided a platform for research to happen on the impact of film to young people who were hospitalized in that environment. So we find that just a simple gesture, just a simple connective tissue can actually impact our community, can also open avenues of research, and we're really excited to be part of that. Within the theater department, we have strong a strong understanding and the need for physical wellness of the actor. In my past history and along with my colleagues, we have a strong devotion and dedication to training the physical body. So we have classes specifically that focus on the physical, not only physical wellness, but physical flexibility and capability of using the body. And I find it to be something that's really sort of ignored, because with theater, the training is usually from the head up, a lot of thinking and a lot of emotional understanding. So this is something that we are continuing to look at and seeing how we can explore as a department. So I think I'll stop there and pass it along. Thank you.
Norma, this work that you're doing is so important. It's fascinating, and we're so grateful to hear about the direction of your own research, and also the way you're inculcating this work into the lives of our student actors. It's really fantastic. Thank you so much. And our fourth panelist is Dr. Jeffrey Russell, who is our College of Fine Arts Scholar in Residence this year. And Jeffrey has a lot to say about his fascinating background. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you so much. And when I hear all of these incredible colleagues telling what they do, it's like amazing and such an honor just to be part of this group. And I'm so thankful, so grateful for this chance to work alongside you all. And this is exactly what I feel like I'm good at, working with lots of people from lots of different areas, because I don't know everything. And so I love working with people that ideas their own together. Sort of fun thing. So it's really rewarding. I'm in my 9th year at Ohio University. I got my PhD in 2000. Lived in England from 2005 to 2008. I got my PhD later in my career because back in 2001 and 2002, I was at Belhaven University in Jackson, Mississippi, on the faculty in sports medicine, exercise science. I'm an athletic trainer. And I'll tell you a little bit. I have a couple of slides that I'll share with you in just a second. But I'm an athletic trainer, which you typically would associate with a sports environment, although we work in lots of different environments, including performing arts. Some dancers came into the clinic. A couple, one came and then another one came. And they all were having injuries. I had no one to take care of them, so they came to our athletic training facility. So I was the one that was interested in taking care of them, because it just didn't sit on my heart that people are having injuries and no one was there to take care of them. And that was the beginning of me changing my career lock, stock, and barrel from sports medicine to performing arts medicine, and have been an advocate and a partner with performing arts ever since. I don't come from a performing arts background. And so I have gotten great mileage out of sitting with artists and listening to them and having them explain to me what it is that they're going through, what their needs are, so that I can work together with them in that partnership. It's such a meaningful chance for me, because without that kind of relationship, there is nothing that I'm able to do, literally. And so it always has to be about partnership. That's why I'm really excited about the initiative here at UNLV. I mentioned I've been at Ohio for 9 years. This is my 9th year. For 8 years, I have been leading a clinic and a research program called Science and Health and Artistic Performance, or what we call SHAPE. And this is an opportunity, again, to work with our health sciences area of our campus and the fine arts area of our campus. And so I set up this clinic and a research program to go with it. And so 2013 onward, we've been doing just incredible clinical work. I've got 3 athletic trainers who work with me, 3 of my graduate students, all licensed athletic trainers in Ohio. We see about 700 of our performing arts students. Maybe just share my screen for a second here and show you a couple things that might help you visualize the things that we're doing, because I think some of them are quite similar to things that you all might be doing. So this is our clinic, and anybody that looks at it that's familiar with an athletic training facility or perhaps a physical therapy facility will say, oh, it looks very, very similar. It looks like you do injury treatments. It looks like you do rehabilitation, and that's true. There are a couple things you can just, in the left picture in the lower right corner, you can barely see the corner of a dance floor. So we have a dance floor in our clinic, we have a ballet bar, we have a mirror, and we also have a keyboard, a piano keyboard. And so all of these things would certainly tell you that this is for performing artists, and all we see are performing artists. We have 4 licensed athletic trainers and a physician medical director, and we see all of these different art forms. So theater performance, theater production, dance, music, marching band, film, and then occasionally even some visual art students will come through. They've heard about what we do and they want to come and get taken care of. And we don't really turn anybody away. If they're an artist, we like to take care of them. So that's the gist of our patient population, and it's extremely rewarding work. All of my graduate students are aimed at becoming athletic trainers in performing arts medicine. And so it makes a very good immersive environment. As far as what an athletic trainer is, you can scan through this if you like, just to see some of the things that we typically do, but we would not want to be called a trainer, and we're certainly not a personal trainer, because we are licensed as healthcare professionals in the same way a physician's licensed, or a physical therapist is licensed, or an occupational therapist is licensed. And so athletic trainers really have a very strong role historically in sports, but now we work in other fields, including performing arts. And in fact, the National Athletic Trainers Association has a portion of their website, which you could go to nata.org, and you can read about this. There's some videos there, some different resources that are there if you're interested in how this type of healthcare professional might interface in a university environment. To me, athletic trainers are a natural person to do this, because this is the area where we first are educated. We're educated and we work in a collegiate environment. You think of the sports teams in the intercollegiate athletics. They all have athletic trainers. And so this is just a natural environment for us to work in performing arts and trying to take care of the injuries there. This is an example of something that we do. This is an emergency training program. So some of the characteristics of an athletic trainer are the emergency care and concussion diagnosis and management, and a lot of emphasis on preventive exercise. So these are all things that are not necessarily unique, but very indicative of what athletic trainers do. And here we're working on an emergency extrication practice coming out of the lighting grid in one of our theaters, and you can see the lights there and whatnot. So these are some of my students, and we work together with the theater department in doing this. So we work in the different areas that you see there: physical training, treatment of injuries, rehab, research, and the emergency preparedness. So all of this to try to be ready for whatever might come down the pike from our performing arts world. These are all places where you'll find athletic trainers working with performing artists. Cirque du Soleil uses primarily athletic trainers, some physical therapists as well. I'm on the research advisory group for Cirque du Soleil, which is quite a privilege to be associated with them. My friends at Radio City Music Hall. You look at these different types of entities, and this would be a place that you would typically find athletic trainers. So the kinds of things that we're doing are, I think, very closely aligned with the to get a clinic up and running. Performing arts, to me, encompasses all the disciplines. Anybody that's associated in some way with executing a performing arts performance is welcome in our clinic. So while you might not think of somebody working backstage on a soundboard as a performing artist per se, in that they're not on the stage doing a performance, they are integral to the performance. And so they are welcome in our clinic. And so we have a very broad definition of what it means to be a performing artist, because they all have very artistic background and they have artistic dimensions to what they do. One of our most interesting types of patients are the students that come out of our costume shop. So we do a lot of work with them in terms of their posture and muscle tightness and myofascial pain syndrome and things like that. In terms of the kinds of things that I've been privileged to do in the past, my background in athletic training is really that's the clinical care part of it. But the research part of it involves things such as concussions. I'm working heavily in concussions in the stunt and film, the stunt industry in the film and television world. Working in starting some work now in commercial dance with a big international organization that's devoted to that type of artist. I have done research on noise exposure in marching band. So I've just really had a chance to do a variety of things. We're doing some things in mental health. It's a specific area of mine of interest. Because mental health is so integral to performing arts, and there's so many issues with performing arts, and because of some things that my wife and I have been through with our children, we are all in on mental health. And in fact, she's has her national certification to teach mental health first aid. So this is something that I've been doing some research in. I guess they asked me just to say the kinds of things that I do. Well, I mentioned about Cirque du Soleil. I'm on the advisory board for Youth Protection Advocates in Dance. I'm on the founders board of the Bridge Dance Project, the board of directors of the Performing Arts Medicine Association. I'm a fellow of the International Association for Dance Medicine and Science. All of these things I see not as something to lift myself up, but as tools that allow me to be able to work together with artists, to build bridges, to be able to give what I have to offer to them as they give what they have to offer. And it creates an incredible transdisciplinary type of an environment. It's very collaborative. All of the research that I do is what we call community engaged research. In other words, I don't do research on a community of artists. I do that research with a community. So I have got people who are part of that community, who are artists in their own right. For example, I have 2 stunt women up in Canada that I do research with. I make sure that they are legitimate co-investigators in the research projects. And that is community engaged research. And it just is such a dynamic, energetic, innovative, creative way to go about research, because everybody gets their say, and everybody's little piece of what they know gets brought to the table, and it creates an incredible environment for executing a research project. So, that's something about me, and happy to entertain any questions throughout, not just tonight, but throughout this time. I mean, I'm privileged to be a scholar in residence with you all, and so I believe that means that you now have a relationship that can play out even past that, so that hopefully the things that you're doing will just take form and just grow and flourish and be absolutely amazing. So just thank you so much for the opportunity, Dean Uscher and Dr. Kaplan and others, just for the chance to be here amongst you.
Jeff, thank you so much for letting us know the range of interests you have and the work that you've been doing. And frankly, I'm just inspired by our 4 panelists, the passion with which they do their work, and then again, the range of work, the clinical work, the practice, and the research is just wonderful. We're going to move forward now with a couple of questions to have a wide-ranging discussion among our panelists, and then we'll be very happy to open the discussion up with all of our distinguished audience members as well. So there are a couple of questions that I'm going to ask, and then the discussion can take its direction given how our panelists would like to address these issues. One is, how is COVID-19 affecting the current and future health and treatment of performing artists? And the other question is, what kinds of career opportunities are there for our students related to the area and research of performing arts, health, and wellness? So these are 2 different kinds of questions, but I'm putting them both out there so we have a choice about how we want to address them. Thank you so much. So go at it, panelists, first, before we get our distinguished audience members involved.
I could say a few things about what's been going on during the pandemic over the past few months and what I'm worried about as we continue in this mode. So the biggest thing that I've seen with the people I've been working with, and especially with students, are the mental health issues. There's a lot of stress being felt now mentally, a lot of depression I'm seeing. And fortunately, I think here at UNLV, they've been doing an excellent job of trying to reach out to people and provide resources to help people who are in need. But I know from past experience and from a lot of people I've worked with over the years that this type of mental stress that people are experiencing often eventually leads to physical injury or physical pain in relation to playing a musical instrument, which is what I work with people on, or singing, or some of these other things. And so that's something that worries me, is that eventually this stress gets embodied and it's going to be a problem. And fortunately, we'll have the clinic open by then to help all these people. But on the flip side, the other thing that's been interesting is, of course, when we immediately went into this isolation mode and being physically distanced in the way we are and having mostly online classes at UNLV, et cetera, and people in the music world no longer had the opportunity to rehearse and perform with each other. They still want to play, though. So the demand for me and people like me has been greater than ever. I've been busier than ever during the pandemic because people are taking the opportunity to use this time that they have, since they don't have pressing engagements with a big concert or a ton of rehearsals. They're spending more time on foundational things, on the fundamentals of playing, and they're reevaluating, what is it about my embouchure? What is it about breathing? And so I've been busy as ever doing all kinds of workshops all over the country, working privately with students. As I said, I work with people on getting licensed to teach body mapping. So all of a sudden, people who for years have been doing it just kind of part-time, now they have time to dig into it. So I've licensed 3 or 4 people just in the past couple of months. So that's been exciting, and maybe that trend of especially reevaluating how our approach to what we do with our technique for our performances might offset the mental stress issue. We'll see. But the other worry I have is that even though I think a lot of performers are still playing a lot right now, they aren't playing in the same way, though. If you're in your home or your apartment, it's not quite the same as playing in a huge concert hall like the Smith Center, or playing in the marching band in the Allegiant Stadium, something like that. So when people finally do get back together, I'm a little bit worried that they won't really have the chops for it, even though they've been playing all along. And they're going to suddenly jump into having that rigorous rehearsal schedule they had pre-pandemic. And again, there's a potential for injury there if people aren't careful about the way they get back into work. So those are many of the things I've been reflecting about over the past few months.
I'll jump in here. I agree with you 100%, Stephen, that that the emotional stress that our artists are finding themselves under is really something that is unprecedented for them. We in the theater field are not as lucky, I think, in some ways, to be able to create. We are a collaborative form, and so we are required to have groups of people coming together, and therefore there's been a pause in that activity. When I look at our students, they're under a lot of stress because they see that they can't get into to do the work that they need to do, and the practical work that they need to do in order to really move forward. When I think of them in the field, which is where most of them are moving towards, right now as we know, every theater is shuttered, and there's a lot of the work has moved to Zoom, which does not necessarily help our designers, our technicians. However, when you think about all of it, there is this very small but impactful issue, which is the economic issue of healthcare for our artists. And with the lack of work, the unions have really had to cut back on the support they have for healthcare. So not only are they under stress and experiencing changes physically because of the level of activity that you just mentioned, but then just the number of weeks that they have to work on a union contract has been elevated in order for them to be able to continue their health care. So it's adding to the stress. So it's a very complicated time. It's something that I think we're going to see the impact for a long time to come. And I do believe, as you say, that once a reentry happens, that there's going to have to be a concerted effort to look at the physical and mental health of artists to help them re-enter and acclimate again to whatever is new. I don't think it's going to look the same as it did before, but it's going to be something quite different. And I suspect that there's going to be a nexus here and there that can address those upcoming issues. So I hope that we, in the clinic that you're planning, I hope that we'll be able to look at the activities and actually do collect research on what we're seeing with our students and perhaps local artists who are integrated into our community.
Thank you so much, Norma.
Yeah, I completely agree about the mental health. And in fact, the other day I was giving a talk to our theater graduate students in production about health and safety. And one of the things that I mentioned, and they asked about before I had already planned it in the talk, and they asked about, what about mental health? What about mental health? And I think it should be perhaps not a mandatory requirement, but I think it would be a really superb idea if as many of your faculty as possible could receive a certification in mental health first aid, because this is what allows you to be able to be that first responder, to see what's going on with your students and with the other artists that are around your departments. I think that is really, really something that should be thought through and I don't require as possible of its value, and because we had problems before, but it's even worse. It's just exacerbated everything. And I also think related to that, it'd be worth your time. There's a group in British Columbia all-time mental health, and it's primarily for the film industry in British Columbia because they have such a large film industry. That's where some of my research is going on with stunt workers, but they have an introductory video on their website called timementalhealth.com, and you get on there and you look at their video. It is extremely compelling, and it really brings to bear the need for this in performing arts. And it is a video that doesn't just apply to film people, even though those are film people that are talking, that are speaking out about this. It really, really is superb, and so I highly recommend that as a resource for you all.
If I can interrupt, Jeff, I did want to toot your horn for you. You haven't mentioned a group that you're really active with, the Athletes in the Arts organization. And what you're just speaking about, I'm remembering seeing on the Athletes in Arts website, especially related to some of the work you've done with the New Orleans clinic for performing arts health down there. You had some excellent materials just online available as resources related to mental health and the performing arts. So I just wanted to throw that out there. People should look at Athletes in the Arts website. They've got some excellent material and links to other sites and such.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, and I think what you should do is you should introduce Randy, because he's on the call and he's the leader of Athletes and the Arts, and I think it'd be good if people knew who he was and knew his name, and he could just give the website for Athletes in the Arts, because it's a superb resource center.
I wanted to
Sounds good, Rand. Yeah, go ahead, Nancy.
I just wanted to mention to everyone that this is being recorded, and it will migrate to an archive on the college's YouTube channel, so that all the different, first of all the perspectives that are fantastic of our panelists will be have been recorded. And in addition, we see that many new resources and websites and materials are being referenced in this our virtual panel, and so you can always go back to the recording to revisit. But Stephen, go ahead. You were going to say something.
I was just going to say, if Randy okay with showing his face a little bit, maybe he can just say a couple of sentences about Athletes in the Arts, because Randy actually is a co-scholar in residence because of the affiliation of the Athletes in the Arts. So if you would tell us a little bit about it, and maybe you can put in the chat the actual website address.
Randy, are you there? maybe.
Yep, there you go. Sorry. Yep, I'm
It's okay.
just working
You didn't
on putting
expect
the,
it, so thank you for your
no,
responsibility.
I was just working on putting the Athletes in the Arts website in the chat. So I will do that. And also, let me see. You guys can hear me, right?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. And let me think. Okay, Athletes in the Arts, just basically it's a non-for-profit organization that encompasses about 19 organizations that range from sports medicine organizations like National Athletic Trainers Association, American Medical Society for Sports Medicine, and also then performing arts organizations like National Association of Teachers of Singing or PAMA. So we got sort of a nice blend of different organizations, and we're sort of taking what we've learned in the sports medicine and wellness world and try to apply it to performing arts medicine, and also vice versa, taking things from performing arts that might also apply on the athletic side, with target audiences of physicians, performing artists, and then educators as well, whether it's the music educators in the academic world, or maybe it's just the folks that are, being the band directors or whatever that are leading the choreographers as well. So that's in a nutshell. I'll have a chance to talk to you, I guess, next semester, but I'll put the link to the website out there, and you're definitely welcome to use any of the materials that are on the website.
We are going to have a forum next semester, and we'll be releasing that date fairly soon. So this is just the first of two, and we'll have a continuation as well of this discussion and bringing up some new points also. Would it be okay right now? We're about 10 minutes before the end to open it up to our audience. But Cassie, I don't know, as a panelist, if you also wanted to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to add, I completely agree with everybody from the mental health perspective. From my end, and if I'm bringing it right back to UNLV, the challenge for us is we've had to stop our in-person screenings and treatments. We've tried to offer some of that virtually, and we've done some educational seminars virtually. But from my end, I know the dancers are still dancing, but they're not getting hands-on treatment. So I just wonder, we talk about it also out in the community, people are avoiding, checkups and things like that. So I just wonder what the long-term consequences might also be from the physical aspect. And I'm hoping somehow next spring, we can try and find a way to do some in-person stuff, COVID allowing.
So Cassie, are there regulations that are keeping you from seeing people in clinic? Is that what it is?
We don't have an official clinic. This is the reality. Is we're not a clinic. We're operating out of a classroom, and we had very strict parameters on us in the Department of Physical Therapy as to how we could run out hands-on labs with our own students. And I'm quite certain the dance department had their own setup, so that can be part of the conversation outside of this meeting as well. And I just from a career standpoint in performing arts medicine, I sort of feel like I'm a little bit of a prime example of that. I started out as a kinesiology student at UNLV, and then went off into the Pilates realm. So the options are there. I also have PT students that have had some exposure to dance medicine now, not having thought that they really have an interest in it, but then they're realizing how handy it comes in handy when they're out in the clinic, and also trying to apply for residencies and things like that. So it's all good. So thank you.
Thank you, Cassie. That's really wonderful information. We have, about 6-7 minutes. We might go a little bit over, if that's okay. So I'd like to open it up now to our audience. And since we kind of see each other, we could just chime right in rather than, go through the formality of raising your hand in the chat.
Nancy, hi. So I'm kind of a newcomer. My name's Mark Kahn. I'm the Dean of the School of Medicine. So this was really interesting. So firstly, any way we can help with some of the medical aspects where, we can let us know, and we want to be involved. But going the other way, the stuff that Norma talked about, I think, there really is a need and validity for our exposure to arts and humanities and medicine. So moving forward, I hope that the School of Medicine can be involved in some of those activities. So my colleagues and I have published in this area. It's striking the correlation between positive attributes in physicians and their exposure to the arts. That's watching plays, that's writing poetry, that's playing music, etc. And, a famous physician, William Osler, once said that the arts and science of medicine aren't separate, but twin berries on one stem. And certainly at a new med school like UNLV, we want to make sure that we incorporate humanities. So I look forward to working with many of you on this call, and thank you for putting this together.
Mark, thank you. That's really exciting to hear that perspective. And you have other people, I know, Annie and others from the School of Medicine who are on the call. And we're just so excited with all of the future collaboration we can do. So thank you, Mark, for those fine comments. Others who would like to chime in here and say something?
This is Kate Martin from the School of Medicine. Just to quickly follow up to Dean Kahn. We have a sports medicine fellowship. So from the training opportunity, collaborations are just endless. So yeah, we're thrilled to partner with you on this effort. So we look forward to future opportunities. Thanks.
Thank you so much. We're so, the spirit is so rich and warm here in this virtual space where people have really, I think, this impetus to work together to create new knowledge, to help our students, to help our society. So thank you all. We have a few more minutes. Any other comments? I also want to say that if you don't have a chance to ask a question or make a comment, I'd just like to offer my email, which is nancy.uscher, spelled an odd way, USCHER, at unlv.edu. So please feel free to, if you've written things in the chat, for example, but we haven't had a chance to address, write to me. It will be a joy to have an online conversation, an email conversation with you, and I can then direct you to the email addresses of our panelists. So please do that if you feel that for some reason we haven't had a complete conversation about something that is important to you. Because really what's important, I think, about this virtual space and this panel is getting us all involved in an important conversation for our future. So, and to look at the potential of interdisciplinary practice and research. But having said that, we have a few more minutes. I just wanted to say that I don't want you to go away feeling that you didn't have a chance to say something that was important to you. Anybody else want to say anything? Or I want to take a moment to thank Dr. Ashley Stone, who really helped facilitate this panel and this session. So I want to say thank you, Ashley. And of course, I want to thank our panelists who were phenomenal. But we still have a few minutes if there's some, last words.
I just wanted to add something, Nancy. Jeff mentioned the idea of community engaged research, which is such a fantastic approach. And he's, a personal testament to how it works successfully. And certainly that's our intention. I mean, we're just kind of starting with this. Like I said, our consortium has only been around a couple of years. We've done a lot of good things with it. Now we're working towards having this clinic to specifically be able to work with students and faculty as well that have issues. But it's definitely our goal to encourage and nurture and do whatever we can to foster research. I mean, Las Vegas is called the entertainment capital of the world. It's had that name for a very long time. So it's a place that's ripe for this sort of research. And I'm just hoping that eventually, as the ball gets rolling and we get more partners on board, that we can work with our physical therapy area a little more, with our kinesiology area, with our School of Medicine more, and find ways of encouraging research that would be really helpful for the whole world. This area of performance arts medicine is really new. I mean, it's really only been around a couple of decades. And so there's lots of room for research. There's a lot of stuff that we speculate about that we're really not sure of because the hardcore research just hasn't been done yet. So that's why I'm excited that we are here at UNLV, and there's a lot of new energy here, even with the pandemic. I still feel that energy. And so I just am excited for that possibility and wanted to throw out that that definitely is part of our vision, even though it may be a couple of years before we're really able to get that. But we wanted, I mean, just having this webinar or forum, that's really part of what it's all about. It's just letting people know we're here. We want more to happen, and I'm so excited about all the people that have shown up today, and I hope to meet with every one of you at some point and talk more about this.
Well, I agree that one of our goals today was certainly to raise a level of awareness about the rich palette of opportunity that we have and the wide range of interests among our distinguished panelists. So if there aren't any, are there any final comments? Because it is 5.
Yeah, Nancy,
Nancy.
If it's all right, I would throw one comment out. This is Randy. You had asked a question earlier to the panel about the students. And I guess one point I would make is that the interdisciplinary opportunities in what you all are working on are really very ripe for development. Imagine talking to the School of Business about the needs of performing arts, both from the business side and the health and wellness, as well as the School of Medicine, as well as the biology folks in terms of understanding some of the challenges there. So it's definitely, along with performing arts itself, so it's definitely a cross discipline, and don't be afraid to encourage folks from outside of the performing arts world to engage in this, because I think then you're going to get better ideas and you're going to broaden your audience.
Thank you, Randy. I know somebody else wanted to say.
Nancy, this is Sue.
Yeah. Hi,
I
Sue.
also just want to throw out music therapy as part of this whole big circle, especially the community engaged research, because I look at all those students out there that have been homeschooled or online for 9-10 months, probably more, probably longer. And those young students also need help, but also the elder community. And I'm just looking at all the COVID restricted people, whether they be in hospitals or whatever. So I think the music therapy can also be part of this big discussion.
Sue, that's a wonderful point, and I look forward to future conversations about that. I think it would be important to pursue that. Thank you so much. I believe it's about 5:02, and I think that just honoring everyone's time, that we should close the session. But again, I want to thank our panelists who were just really fabulous, and our audience that was also, raised some very thought-provoking ideas. And we look forward to pursuing the ideas that were presented here, continuing to raise awareness, and we'll be following up with a forum next semester. But again, we're very, very happy to find out among you who would like to join this work with us, because it is interdisciplinary and it's important for our society. So thank you so much, again, the panelists, for all of you who spent your time with us today, and we look forward to seeing you soon. And again, Ashley, thank you so much for your facilitation. Thank you so much, and bye-bye.